Hello and welcome to Arabesque. My name is Radina, and this week we'll be sitting down and having a chat to Judith Barry. Giving women a voice and telling stories that are seemingly missing from the mainstream media, this artist has sat down and conducted over 200 interviews, listening to the voices of women from Cairo. She has ultimately made her works of art from it. It's Cairo Stories.
My name is Nadia, and I am a student at AUC.
I work as a translator for movies, mostly comedies.
You know, my mother, she can make anything. She was the best seamstress in the village, and I used to help her.
As I walk around, I see men sleeping by the fires, trying to keep warm.
Before I thought, if I can do this, I can do anything. There is nothing I can't do.
Well, I trained as an architect, and then after about a year of being in architecture, I decided that I wanted to do something else. So I started going to art school and basically became an artist. I was invited there for the Cairo Biennale in 2000, where I represented the US. And when I got there, women started telling me stories because I was a stranger. And it was easier, I think, to reveal stories to a stranger than to someone close. So the project sort of found me in a way. Cairo has a great storytelling tradition. And that was another thing that really I thought was, a delightful thing, because everybody that you would meet would tell you a story and different parables about life there. And it's a very rich culture in terms of its storytelling tradition. The stories are comprised from 215 interviews, and then I probably had another 20 or 30 translators over that time, and maybe 25 interlocutors, so big cast of characters. We had very frank conversations about the veracity of the stories and also about what the stories might mean. And so it was really an interesting process, and that's why it took a long time.
I am 62 now. I spent most of my life among the working poor and especially women in Cairo.
Nobody cared that day. Nobody cared those 18 days about religion, social class, gender. We were all just Egyptian. And we were all there for the same reason. Now is really the time to dream.
I think it was the differences that people were able to articulate around questions of how they conceive of their agency as women. That was, I think, really eye-opening. For example, women from the upper class have much less freedom than women from the upper class do here. And the reason is because the family is so strong. And the family, much more than in the West, really does have import into the kinds of decisions that one makes. Whereas people from the working class who, because education is free in Egypt, if you can test into colleges, they had a lot more freedom because they were educated, and yet they didn't have the strong family that would determine the course of their lives. It's very matriarchal, despite the fact that on the outside it appears very patriarchal. But actually, family life is so important, and without it, men are sort of nothing. That was another interesting realization. I've often done these kinds of as told to stories using actors because it's often too emotional and too difficult for the person telling the story initially to stick to the same story. So, and I think it also raises the question about fiction and narrativity and truth and narrativity, because I think that just as we all know from watching the news that the news is not always truthful or true, similarly, a story can be told from many different perspectives, and you as a person may tell it from one perspective one time and from another time. So there's a kind of slippery relationship between veracity and the storytelling, which I think is really interesting. For the women, and many of them told me this, being able to tell someone these really intimate details was very liberating for them, not only in a kind of personal psychoanalytic way, but also in the way of empowering them to kind of own their story in a different way. And I've kept in touch with quite a few of them, and their lives have radically changed. The power of storytelling is extremely important as a way of creating understanding, because when you tell a story, someone is listening, and it's that listening and that speaking together that can make a difference.
There is no need to be afraid anymore. We have broken the barrier of fear.